Hello and welcome back to Laura Reports. We have a full episode for you today. We have a brand new press secretary, the youngest ever, actually. We have Pete Hegseth, who's been sworn in as the defense secretary. We have some brand new information about the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case, along with Selena Gomez, who went on her Instagram Live and cried about the deportations and then deleted it. Stay tuned. So Pete Hegseth has officially been sworn in as the defense secretary, and if you saw the hearing, I was surprised that he made it along because everyone just attacked him. The hearing was next level crazy. I'm used to kind of watching the House of Commons, Canadian Parliament, but I'm really not used to watching like C-SPAN, what goes on in the Senate, and I gotta say, it was hella interesting. Man, there was a lot of crazy Democrats up in there getting really mad at Pete Hegseth, and yet he made it through and was sworn in as our defense secretary. So Pete Hegseth was one of Trump's most controversial nominees. Hegseth served in Iraq, Afghanistan, Guantanamo Bay. He's been a former Army National Guard officer, and he's been a political commentator for Fox News since 2014. People seem to have a problem with Pete for a couple reasons. One, he said that women should not be serving in combat roles unless they pass the fitness tests. The standards shouldn't have been lowered. There seemed to be some sort of misunderstanding in the Senate as to whether or not he meant that the standards should be lowered or that women just shouldn't be in the combat roles at all. And he made it abundantly clear that as long as they hit the fitness tests in order to be in combat roles, then he would be fine for women to be on the front line in combat, which I completely understand. Why would you have fitness tests if they couldn't get it past? It's like the LA fire department, the woman who's like, she can't carry a man out of a burning building, then you shouldn't be a firefighter, ma'am, if you can't carry somebody out of a burning building. And then she said, and I said this in my last episode, but she was like, well, why were you there in the first place? Absolutely crazy. So I looked through, there was a police report done because Pete Hegseth, one of the most controversial things about him is that he was accused of sexual assault. So in order to understand why Trump would still put this man up as his defense secretary nominee, I looked through the police report, and I gotta say, it is very black and white that this is a load of fiction. And the fact that any news program would take this woman's word as law, and they have over and over again, like they mentioned Pete Hegseth, and in the second breath they're like, who's been accused of sexual assault? But that's really actually not what happened. So from what I could see by the police report, it was very clear that the woman was not telling the truth. It was a fake allegation if you looked at it. So she claims that she was drugged and then sexually assaulted by Hegseth, but there were 3 eyewitnesses, 2 security cameras, and her husband that all tell a different story. Is that not enough witnesses? She claims that she was drugged, and there was an independent video and 3 eyewitnesses and her own husband saying she was fine and she was not drugged. So people just can't state things like that in life. It's absolute bullshit. I think people who on TV are stating such obvious lies should be prosecuted in some way. Like it's absolutely mind-boggling to me that legacy media can just say things like, well, he raped a woman. No, he didn't. She claims that she was flirting with him, and then she was drugged, and then she woke up, and then she realized days later that she had been sexually assaulted. And yet video cameras, eyewitnesses, and her husband say that she was fine at 1:30 in the morning and 4 a.m. in the morning. So that gives approximately 2.5 hours that she would have had to be drugged and raped with absolutely no indication at 4 a.m. by her husband that anything was wrong. If you're date rape drugged, 2.5 hours later, you're not okay. You're not like, oh yeah, totally, I'm doing fine. Let me do a crossword here. Let me ask all these questions of you when you get home. Like, you're fucked up. Like, you're passed out. something's amiss. Nobody saw that she was loopy or acting drugged in any which way. And he wasn't charged. The police looked at this. The police did all of their investigations. The police questioned all of these things and decided not to charge him because the evidence wasn't there. So people shouldn't be allowed to say that he sexually assaulted some woman if he was not charged. It's just crap. I think it's just because their politics do not align with this man. They don't align with left-wing news channels, and they'll say things like that to make him sound guilty of something when he's not. So Pete has recently been confirmed as defense secretary, but his nomination hearing was an absolute embarrassment for the Dems. Okay, so the worst performance on the Democrats came from this woman, Kristen Gillibrand, a senator from New York. So she claims that having women in combat roles hasn't affected the standards of the fitness test being reduced in any way. True? Not from my research. No, actually not.
As Secretary of Defense, so please explain these types of statements, because they're brutal and they're mean and they disrespect men and women who are willing to die for this country.
Well, Senator, I appreciate your comments, and I would point out I have never disparaged women serving in the military. I respect every single female service member that has put on the uniform, past and present. My critiques, Senator, recently and in the past, and from personal experience, have been instances where I've seen standards lowered, and you mentioned 11 Alpha, 11 Bravo, MOS, places in units, and the book that has been referenced multiple times here, The War on Warriors. I spent months talking to active duty service members, men and women, low ranks, high ranks, combat arms and not combat arms. And what each and every one of them told me, and which personal instances have shown me, is that in ways direct, indirect, overt, and subtle, standards have been changed inside infantry training units, ranger school, infantry battalions, to ensure that
Give me one example. Please give me an example. I get you're making these generalized statements.
Commanders meet quotas to have a certain number of female infantry officers or infantry enlisted, and that disparages those women.
Commanders do not have to meet quotas for the infantry. Commanders do not have to have a quota for women in the infantry. That does not exist. It does not exist. And your statements are creating the impression that these exist, because they do not. There are not quotas. We want the most lethal force.
They've been lowered to allow more women into combat roles. So the Army revised its fitness test 2 years ago because women couldn't meet the standards. So they had this DEI mandate to get more women into the Army. And there's always been women in the Army, just not in direct combat roles. And if there are, they're in different units, kind of supporting the frontline men, which I actually think is really important. I think that times now are moving to the realization that men are physically stronger naturally. Biologically, men are stronger, men are faster. So Venus and Serena Williams, some of the best tennis players in the absolute world. And they decided to play against junior men. It was the 200th man in the world. He beat both of these women in tennis, and Venus and Serena Williams, one of them, I can't remember, I'm so sorry, says, I'll never play a man again. They're stronger, they're faster, they're biologically better at sports than we are.
Men's tennis and women's tennis are completely almost two separate sports. So I'm if I were to play Andy Murray, I would lose 6-0, 6-0 in 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because it's true. It's true. It's a completely different sport. The men are a lot faster, and they serve harder, they hit harder. It's just a different game, and I love to play women's tennis, and I only want to play girls because I don't want to be embarrassed. I would not do the tour. I wouldn't do Billie Jean any justice. So Andy, stop it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let you kill me.
I'm with you when it comes to tennis. I only want to play girls.
Which is so important, because if you have an army that's defending your country, you need the strongest, the fastest, the best on the front lines. So let's have women in the army, let's have women in military, but let's not have them on the front lines, right? So 2 years ago, So the Army revised its fitness test because women couldn't meet the standard. So there's a Blaze journalist, Julio Rosad, who tweeted, "Never forget that the Marine Corps did a 9-month study on women in combat units versus male-only combat units, which showed that the male-only combat units outperformed them 9-1. And they also had less injuries and higher recovery time." Hegseth has long said that the standards will stay the same. He'll support women in combat. He said that women have always and will always be a part of the military, and he doesn't want to change that. Another embarrassing Democratic woman who just really wanted to flaunt her politics rather than actually ask him any questions is a former CIA employee, a woman named Elsa Slotkin. She tried to act like she was on his side. She's like, "You're a man of the military. I'm a woman of the CIA. Like, we're on the same side." And at first, you know, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is the girl. Like, she's gonna help him out." And then she asked about Trump, like hypothetically wondering if Hegseth would follow Trump's orders to attack the enemy within, which is immediately a red flag, because Trump never said that in his context. This is another one of those things where Trump says something, and then they completely change the context to fit their narrative. So he was specifically asked by a woman named Maria Bartatello whether or not, if there were protests around the election, he would bring in the military. And in response, he said, "Well, you might have to use the military," and referred to some people as being the enemy from within. But the far left media has been using it as a soundbite and changing the context from the original meeting, saying that he would use the U.S. military on American citizens who do not vote for him. There was also this woman, oh man, I can't remember her name. I think she's from Hawaii. And she did this really annoying thing. I've realized watching the Senate that it angers me. Like, I watched a tiny portion of the RFK Jr. Senate, which is going on today. I'm sure I'll report on it in a couple days. But he was talking to Warren, the senator, and he has like a speech impediment of some kind. And she is just rattling, "That's not my question. That's not what I'm talking about. Answer the question. Tell me, blah, blah." And he can't like talk. Oh, and she's just over him and over him and over him. That would make me so mad. Like, if I continue to do what I'm doing in this political sphere, like, I would really have to learn to not be like, "Shut up and let me speak," because it's just so frustrating. There was this woman from Hawaii that I was previously talking about at the Pete Hegseth nomination hearing, and she's asking him inane questions and being like, "Yes or no?" And he's like, "Well, you know, Senator, I really think that," blah, blah. And she's like, "Yes or no? Answer the question. Yes or no? You're not answering me. Yes or no?" And it's just like, girl, let him answer the question. Yeah, I'm not hearing a question. I'm going to take that as a no because I'm not hearing a yes or no. I'm going to take that as a no. Like, they look hysterical. They're like foaming at the mouth. Like, it's such a bad look for these senators. And unfortunately, most of them are women. Although there was this one guy who said, and I should find the clip. I'll try to find the clip.
"You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared?" Senator, how is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's...
But he has like crazy hair. He looks like freaking a less smart Albert Einstein. Like, he should have ran a comb through his hair. Like, this is going to be on television, sir. And he's like, "Well, didn't you cheat on your wife? Well, shouldn't we not listen to you because you cheated on you had a child, Mr. Hegseth, and did you not like make that marriage work? Like, is that what this is about?" And then one of the other senators piped up and was like, "How many of you have cheated on your wife? How many of you have like been divorced? Like, should we take a panel here? Is that what this is about? Because this is for the defense secretary nominee. Does it matter if you've had a divorce? I've had a divorce. Does that mean that I'm a terrible person? Nope, absolutely not." And then there was this rumor going around that he had drank at work which I think is absolutely bonkers bananas. There's absolutely no evidence that he ever was drunk at work. And then another senator who was like, do you know how many of you senators have gone to vote after a couple cocktails? Like, who of you have come to do that? Which I didn't know. Like, apparently they can vote for legislation like late at night. And he's like, you guys have gone out for dinner and had a couple drinks and gone to a party and then gone and voted on something? It was great. So there was this woman who was a panelist on CNN, and what was her name? Catherine Rampell. I'm quickly coming to loathe this woman. So she has a bachelor's degree in anthropology and was a theater critic at the New York Times. And she is somehow able to speak smartly on this defense secretary nomination on CNN. I'm not sure why. Like, what does anthropology and theater have to do with defense secretary? Cricket, nothing. So she says that Hegseth's main qualification for the defense secretary was that he was a TV host. Stupider words had not been said. This woman said that his main qualification was that he was a TV host. Actually, no, he's a former Army, I want to say general? National Guard officer who served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Guantanamo Bay, and has served as a political commentator for Fox since 2014. So he's been a political commentator, not a TV host. You make it sound like he was doing American Idol. But at least immediately, I want to find out this guy's name. I'll see if I can find you guys the clip.
And polished, and he's a TV host. That's his main qualification. I know in TV we sometimes get confused.
Why do you denigrate this man's service? I don't understand. 20 years,
Scott,
decorated,
okay. Scott,
Ivy Leaguer.
Never...
He's a TV host. Scott. That's all he is. It's not his main qualification.
That is his main.
He's a TV host.
It's his main qualification.
It is his...
Comes in and goes, that's ridiculous. What makes you said his main qualification is a TV host? He was an officer. And good thing he immediately called her out on that shit, because, which, I mean, good for CNN for having such diversity on that panel, because we know a lot of people don't have, you know, a wide variety of stuff on places like CNN or MSNBC or all of those places. So I'm very excited to hear that he made it through in the defense secretary. So he's been sworn in, which is great. And coming up now, I think Pam Bondi also made it through. I hope so. I didn't see her being sworn in, but I've thoroughly enjoyed watching Pam Bondi's nomination hearing as well. That woman, man, she does not take any glib. Oh, I hope some of these people watch back some of this footage and realize how ridiculous they sound, because it's crazy to think that senators who are in the Senate doing this are just lying, making no sense, like getting hysterical. Like, let's get some better senators going on here. Is the Senate one of those things that's like you have in forever? Like it's like tenure? Oh man, God, I hate that. That makes me sound stupid. Where a professor has tenure. Tenure for all of eternity, because that's something that they can't get fired from, because I hope not. So it'll be really interesting. RFK is in. I just saw a couple sound bites on the RFK nomination hearing. So I from what I hear, like he's not as likely to get through. I'm really hoping. Come on, God, let's go. So he can get rid of some bad things that are in our food, things that have been out of the chemicals of our makeup, but are still in our food, which don't make sense at all. So Trump's inauguration went through. The best part of the inauguration, there's Barron. When Barron goes up to Biden and he says something, and I watched a lip reader, and the lip reader says, "It's on." And Biden's like, "Hi, Barron." And then you can see his eyes just like, get so worried, and then he turns and look, and Barron like turns back at him and gives him this like glare, and then Biden goes, it's so priceless. And then he walks up to Melania, and Melania's like, be nice. It was absolutely epic. So yesterday was the first White House press briefing. I watched very little of the White House press briefings when the other lady with great fashion sense, pretty girl, she was in for Biden. I cannot remember her name. I'll put it here on the screen. Something with a K, some like 3 letters with a K. Anywho, she was a horrible White House press secretary. And so this was the first time I'd ever seen this woman, Caroline Leavitt. Man, she kicked ass. Youngest press house secretary that's ever been around. She is 27. And this woman did not have a binder in front of her, barely had notes, called on people that said out loud, they're like, thank you so very much for calling on me. I've never been called out before. Thanks so much for calling on the back row. I've never been called out before. And answered these questions with such efficiency, clear answers off the top of her head. She obviously seems very smart to be able to, like, I have freaking notes on notes on notes, and I'm an actor. Like, I've memorized scripts left, right, and center. And she has this information about what Trump says, laws, verbatim, memos that have gone out. I was very, very impressed. So she was asked by a reporter about whether or not they're going to be able to trust her. And she says, quote, I will hold myself to the truth and I will expect everyone in this room to do the same. Oh, love it. Love it. Love it. We will not lie here. She took a couple digs at the Biden administration as well while she was up there. She said, I know you're used to this, the old administration, but that's not the way we're going to do things here. We're going to do things this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. And it was just so refreshing and honest. And one of my favorite things was that she encouraged anyone, legitimate news content creators, TikTokers, YouTubers, independent journalists, like, you're welcome to come to and apply. They had a place, she was like, go apply at the White House online. I looked it up, and it'll be very interesting because if this pans out for me, maybe I could go to a White House press briefing. That would be so cool. Oh my God, that would be so cool. And I know that Benny Johnson actually applied to do that as well. I think he'd be great in that. So in the executive orders that's been going out, we're just going to go through this list of 300 executive actions. We will not talk about all 300 because I'm sure a lot of them are boring, or I don't understand, or people don't want to hear about. So we're just going to talk about the highlights. Trump wrote an executive order, signed an executive order to declassify all remaining documents remaining to the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King. That should be interesting. That'll be, I actually think it's going to be more boring than people think it's going to be, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. And it's nice that he said he was going to do all these things, and then he did on this first day on the job when he was signing all those executive orders in front of a room. One of my favorite parts when he had this like box of like nice looking Sharpies, like real, like fancy looking Sharpies, and he's signing them, and at the end he just throws them into a crowd, like guitar picks into this like loving and adoring fans. I just thought that was so funny. Oh no, my printer did not print the top of this, so I cannot see one of this. It says rounded up immigrants. So they rounded up about 6,000 criminal immigrants. They secured $1 trillion in investments. He declared national emergency at the southern border. He ended the catch and release program, which is one of the most shocking things I think that the Biden administration did. Why would you catch criminals just to release them into the public? So a lot of these immigrants that they caught, I'm sure you've seen the video about the gentleman from Haiti. There's also Dr. Phil, who went out with Tom Homan, who is the new border czar, and they went out together to catch a child predator. And I don't understand, like, both of those men had been caught and have been charged, the Haitian man, with like 17 crimes. Why do you release someone like that back into the country? Like, where is the argument for that? Like, we have a justice system that we spend millions, if not billions, of taxpayer dollars on to do what? Put them in jail for a few days and then let them back out on the streets to reoffend? To do things like kill Lake and Riley? Like, I don't see what the argument there. And I think what frustrated me the most with the Biden administration is these questions would get asked to the White House press secretary, whose name almost got to me there. I almost had it. I want to say something with a K. And the questions wouldn't get answered. It's like, or they're like roundabout answers. Like there was a Dutch case. I think I have it right here. There was a Dutch case of, I'm going to see if I can find it. Here it is. 4 unaccompanied child migrants gang rape a woman in a Dutch park, but are jailed for just 15 months after the judge rules that they needed guidance on how to function in our society. Why are we letting rapists out of jail being like, they didn't know better? Yeah, they didn't know that here in Amsterdam or wherever that was in a Dutch country, we don't rape people. They're so used to raping people back where they came from that we don't, we need to give them this one opportunity to really learn their lesson. What is going on? It's interesting because the right has been like, we're common sense. Like, this is common sense stuff. And why are people fighting against that? Like Selena Gomez, I was going to talk about this later, but I'm going to start talking about this right now. So Selena Gomez goes on her Instagram live story crying and says, I wish I could do something, but I can't. My people, the children. Who are you talking about? And the thing is, I really like Selena Gomez. I liked her acting. I liked her singing. I like Rare Beauty. I'm freaking wearing her products right now on my face. Like, I think she probably has a good heart. I think she just does not understand. I think that the Democrats have been lied to by this administration for years and years and years and kind of tricked into thinking that it's kind and it's good to be able to do this. But, like, what children are you talking about? So ICE is this government federal team led by Tom Homan, who's the new border czar, who is capturing these criminals and deporting them. Why are we crying for this Haitian man who had 17 counts, this other man who was in this video with Dr. Phil, who is a child rapist? Like, why are we crying for them? Like, I really don't understand. Not only that, but like, if you want to do, she's like, I wish I could do something. You're a billionaire, billion with a B. Like, you could definitely do something if you wanted to. If you want to help immigrants from Mexico get citizenship, you have so much money. House them. Buy an apartment building. Buy an empty, build an apartment building. And like, I've thought about this. When I am rich and famous one day, I am going to build an apartment building and take people who want to get better, who were addicts, who want to get off the street and have a better life, and house them there and give them all kinds of resources like therapy and, addiction resources and all, helping them get a job and helping them build them up until they can survive on their own, and then move them out of this building and move another family in and help them get their life together and do it. I've thought of that. That's one of my dreams. You could do that. You could take some of these immigrants, you could help them get on their feet, you could help them get citizenship legally. Like, you could do something. And just the fact that, like, you're crying and you set up your phone to talk about this when it's obvious, like, you have a big heart. You're empathetic, but these are criminals. And when people say they're not criminals, you're in the country illegally. That makes you a criminal. Like, Trump's wife is a immigrant. J.D. Vance's wife is an immigrant. My boyfriend came legally from England into this country. And there are legal routes in order to do that. And because they're doing it illegally, they're essentially jumping ahead of the queue and taking real people who need the asylum from real countries who are injured, and they're cheating. They're like, get to the back of the line. I'm going to be here illegally. And we were just giving them taxpayer dollars. So Tom Homan was on Megyn Kelly the other day, and she was interviewing him, and this is what I found out. So there are 17 men that have been detained by ICE who are child sexual predators. Why are we catching them and releasing them into these countries? Why are we crying tears over sexual predators? They are saving children, actually. So Tom Homan said 600,000 illegals with criminal records are in this country. How do they know that? Because all of the information was in the Biden administration. So when Trump took over and Tom Homan came into the White House, that information was just sitting there. Probably just files. They knew where these people were. Why weren't they going and getting them? They knew there were child rapists at 1011 Georgia Town Street, and they just didn't go and arrest them. Why? Why? My theory is because they wanted them to vote for them. It's all about power. All about power, all about money, and not caring about the children. Actually not caring about the children. So 3,500% increase in terror watch list people have been arrested at the southern border since Trump. 3,500% increase in terror watch list people have been arrested at the border. So that means that terror watch list people were just being allowed to walk over the border and go in the country. This is how people got killed. This is how Laken Riley got killed. This is how drug cartels are taking over. This is why gangs are taking over. This is why people are scared. This is why Trump got into power. This is why 78 million people voted for him, because people are scared. We want a country where we are safe. Borders equal safety. So Megyn Kelly asked Tom Homan in her interview yesterday, like, what is Selena Gomez missing? Like, what does she not understand? And he said, she's missing the full story. 250,000 Americans died of fentanyl. 250,000 Americans died of fentanyl. Where did most of that come from? Mexico. Came from the border. Came from drug cartels. 250,000 Americans died from an overdose. 600% increase in sex trafficking. That is, women and children who just want a better life for themselves have been forced into child or adult sex trafficking. 600% increase in sex trafficking. He says, cry for the families who had a permanent separation because a family member died from an illegal alien crossing the border. I think that people's main argument when it comes to deportations is that they're going to separate families. So don't separate the families. So if there's a family here illegally, then they should all go together back to Mexico. I understand that people want to live in a different country. I get it. I live in Canada. I currently do not want to live in Canada because of the Liberal and Trudeau. Like, I would love to be able to I have enough money to buy a house in Florida. I would love to just be able to go down to Florida and buy a house and live there. I cannot. Legally, I cannot. I have to go through, and there's no real legal loophole right now for me to be able to do that just because I want to live there. There isn't. I've looked into it. So hopefully one day we'll be able to go down there and live. But for now, I'm not just going to go sit my ass down there, even though I would like to. So why do other people just get to go across the border, sit their ass down, and then when someone comes along and is like, you shouldn't be here, you need to get out, people are like, but don't separate them from their children. It's like, well, yeah, the children is going to go with them, their family, all go together, go back to your house, go sort something out, go try to figure out immigration legally. When somebody commits a crime, say me, I have my boyfriend here, I have my cats who, let's just assume, are children. They're not. But if I drove drunk and had to go to jail and killed somebody and had to go to jail, and someone couldn't just be like, well, don't separate her from her children. That's what happens when you commit a crime. You go to jail and you're separated from your child. I don't understand the logic here. They're like, well, it's separating from their kids. It's like, well, most of these, first and foremost, are child rapists, murderers, drug cartels, people who have been arrested previously for murder. That's who they're going after first, but they're also going to get just the regular Joe Schmo criminals who were there illegally and deporting them. And then the child should go with them. I think that Selena Gomez has a good heart. and she cares about it, but she doesn't understand the full context of the story. So we're going to give her the benefit of the doubt, which is why she deleted it. Maybe she had an epiphany and was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, actually. So Trump had illegal immigrations down 90% in his first term in office. There are people who actually deserve asylum who are taking a back seat because of these cheaters. Trump said to Meghan during the interview, right now, while we are talking, women are being raped by cartels. And that's so hard to hear, but so important. Right now, right this moment, when you're watching this, when I'm sitting here, women are being raped by the cartels because they just want a better life. They're going over the border and they get taken. They get raped. They get stolen to be used for drug trafficking, for sex trafficking. And he said a child will die on the border tonight. Every night, a child dies on the border. So think of the 9-year-old innocence being taken away by a grown man. That is horrendous. When you think of, how can anyone back illegal immigration when women like Lake and Riley are being raped by these men? They're being killed. When children are being sexually assaulted by these men. And it's proven. I'm not just saying words. There's at least 5 men that have been deported by ICE already that were child rapists. At least 5. Why did we let those 5 people in the country? On January 23rd, ICE, San Fran, arrested a citizen of Mexico who was illegally in the U.S. who's convicted of continually sexually abusing a child. ICE St. Paul arrested a citizen of Honduras who was convicted of 4th-degree sexual conduct of a minor. There's 2 right there. ICE Boston, who arrested a citizen of the Dominican Republic who was convicted of murder, who beat his pregnant girlfriend to death in front of her 5-year-old child. And a couple of these guys were arrested and released back into the public. This is what we want to change here, people. Let's move on. Let's go back to a couple of the executive orders that have been... We ended on catch and release, which got me on my wild Selena Gomez tangent. Next, we have... there's been delivered of an emergency price relief, which is many individual actions to get the grocery prices, gas prices down. There's been an end of the weaponization of government. I'm not quite sure what that means, so I'll get back to you later when I know more about that. There's been a termination of the illegal DEI programs. It is the policy of the federal government that there are only 2 genders, which is wild to me that they did that right away. Crazy to me. I mean, there's only men, there's women. I do think there is a spectrum for sexuality. I'm bisexual, they're biologically, there are men, there are women. I do think it is wild that one of their first executive actions was to state that outright. It was just a slap. It was just hey, new over here. This is what we're doing now. You pay attention to us. This is what's going on. They created Doge. They have been using the United States Office of Management and Budget in relationship with Doge to cancel out. They've already stopped $400 million being allocated into places that they thought were bullshit financial reasons. They put a freeze on foreign aid, which I think is great because they stopped $50 million going to Gaza for condoms. So I don't know if you understand this, but Gaza only has 2 million people out there. So if they were using $50 million for 2 million people, the math ain't mathin'. What are they doing with that money? That sounds like money laundering to me. What are they gonna do? Just buy a bunch of condoms and go over an airplane over Gaza and then just drop them on the streets? Why? It's these kind of things that are what are you doing with taxpayer money? There are so many other things. That $50 million divided up, people are getting mad at the Trump administration because they're taking away, they're reconfiguring all the aid that's coming out of the government towards people. So they're keeping Medicaid and they're keeping other things that's direct aid from the government, but then they're gonna, in the back burner, figure out where that other money is going to before they redirect it. they're getting mad at the Trump administration for that, like the legacy media. But the Biden administration, when it does something like give $50 million for condoms, why does nobody go, hey, we could use that $50 million? Why don't you, take all of those people below the poverty line and divide it up and give them some money? Like, even if you just sent every citizen under a certain tax bracket, like $200, $300, like, I guarantee they'd all be like, thank you. I don't think Gaza's like, oh yeah, we can really use those condoms. These are the kind of decisions that just absolutely don't make sense. So they are no longer part of the WHO. I'm not sure why they did that, or what that means for the administration. I'm going to look into that a little bit more, because I know that people online have been kind of anti Pierre Poilievre because they think that he also wants to get out of the WHO, but I don't know what the benefits of staying in the WHO versus the benefits of leaving are, so I'm going to be looking into that more. They declared a national energy emergency, which is great because then they'll probably start drilling and get more energy going on. They increased vetting for refugees. Very importante, because then these murderers, child rapists wouldn't have been able to get into the country. They redesignated terrorist groups that were declassified by the Biden administration. They reallocated $2 billion from illegal immigrant funding to FEMA Hurricane Helen survivors. So there was $2 billion going to illegal immigrants. $2 billion going to illegal immigrants, and now they've funneled that into helping FEMA Helen survivors. Sounds like a good thing. They got rid of the hostages released from Hamas. Woohoo. They got rid of birthright citizenship, which is interesting, because this was one of those things that I flagged as this might not be good. Isn't birthright citizenship like a good thing? But they were saying that illegal aliens would come over the border to give birth to a child just to have an anchor baby, to anchor them into the United States, which I understand. They banned chemical castration and medical mutilation of children. Amazing. So let's not be cutting off 14-year-old breasts. Let's not be giving people hormones that will stop their penises from growing, which is great because I'm all for trans people. I'm all for trans rights, but at 18, at 18, do whatever you want to do at 18. I have a trans friend. I don't think the Trump administration is going to hurt trans people at all. They have a right to live. People don't really care. Go do you. Doesn't matter. But let's not allow that to hurt children. There are enough detransitioners in the world that their mental health has been affected by this, that let's just blanket say, okay, yep, you can do that, but at 18. You can't vote till you're 18. You can't get a tattoo till you're 18. Let's just wait to cut off your breasts, to cut off your penis until you're 18. I don't think that's a lot to ask, actually. They reinstated 7,000 service members who were dismissed for refusing the COVID vaccine. Amazing. Love it. So excited for them. All right, so moving on from the executive orders, let's talk about California. So the water has been turned back on in California. That was quick. How was it not just immediately? Where did the water, I don't know, where did the water come from where they were like, ooh, all of these fires are destroying the Pacific Palisades. Man, maybe, is there water that we have? Should we turn the water back? Where did it come from? Why did it take Trump to turn the water back on? Why didn't Karen Bass do that? And Karen Bass was telling private property owners that they would have to wait 18 months before they could access their properties. That sounds wrong. No, why would it take 18 months to be able to go back onto your own property? Tell us, Karen Bass. Please tell us. I also found this out about Karen Bass. In 1983, the Capitol was bombed. She was the ringleader. You know what else is interesting? This bombing was carried out by a left-wing group called M19. The M19 was radicalized by the South Los Angeles Venceramos Brigade. The South Los Angeles Venceramos Brigade was founded by Democrat Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, So she helped bomb the Capitol in 1983? That doesn't seem right. Oh, but it is. So why are everyone up in arms about the J6 people getting pardoned? When some of them literally just walked through an open door and ended up in jail. They literally just walked through an open door and ended up in jail. I am completely against violence against police officers. Completely. Anyone who has violence against police officers should go to jail. Oh, the new White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said such an interesting thing. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. I have a lot of, especially because I'm an actor, I have a lot of like left-leaning people that I know, because that's just the biz, right? It's the biz I'm in. And a lot of people have been making memes about egg prices. They're like, oh, Trump supporters are really, having a tough time because Trump promised that, everything would be cheaper, but egg prices have soared. And I didn't know what was going on, if this was true. And she addressed it yesterday. And she said in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, egg prices increased 65%. There is an egg shortage because the Biden administration in the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of 100 million chickens. Why? Probably for food, is my guess. But this makes sense, as there's a lack of an egg supply because there's 100 million less chickens. So there's your answer right there. A little popcorn bite I have is Jimmy Kimmel. I'm going to get this video. I'm going to show you this video.
I don't want to get into all the vile and irresponsible and stupid things our alleged future president and his gaggle of scumbags chose to say during our darkest and most terrifying hour. The fact that they chose to attack our firefighters, who apparently aren't white enough to be out there risking their lives on our behalf, it's disgusting, but it's not surprising. Instead, I want to focus on thanking.
I find it crazy because this is the exact opposite of what the right does. So everyone on the right has been screaming, we don't care about your sex. We don't care about your gender. We don't care about the color, what race you are. We just want the fires out. We just want you to be able to carry a man out of a burning building. And Jimmy Kimmel goes, oh, because Trump wants them to be white firefighters. No, nobody said that ever. Like, this is the kind of stuff that people, like, Jimmy Kimmel should be, like, sued for defamation for something like that, because that's literally exactly the opposite of what people are screaming about. We don't care about your sex. We don't care about your gender. We don't care about who you sleep with. We care that you can do your job properly, which isn't what is happening. Something to focus on. Free speech is important, but everyone harps on hate speech. But what about defamatory speech? So this is defamatory speech. So everyone's like, oh, you can't have hate speech. You can't have hate speech against people. Cool. Yeah, I totally get it. But there's free speech, but there's also the defamatory speech. So Jimmy Kimmel says Trump only wants white firefighters. That's defamatory. That's a lie. And and like the audience is laughing. Another little popcorn bit. So Usha, which is J.D. Vance's wife, who's also an immigrant, is recently moving into the vice president's house. So Kamala and one of my least favorite people in the world, Doug Emhoff, are moving out of the vice president's house. And Usha has been trying to get a hold of Kamala because she has, I think, 3 kids under a specific age. And she's trying to ask Kamala what's going on in the house. What do you think I need for baby proofing? Like, can you help me? Like, could you help me move into this house better? And Kamala's been completely avoiding her phone calls. I thought that was very interesting. All right, moving on to the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni mess. I gotta say, guys, I am at the edge of my seat. Candace Owens has been the freaking little Inspector Gadget sleuth for all of us, because the amount of information that has come out between my last video and now is overwhelming. So I've broken it down a little bit for you, and I gotta say, I was wrong. I take it back. I take it back. I was wrong. I will always admit when I'm wrong. I will tell you. I will tell the world I was wrong. I was like, I don't know who's right here. There is someone who's right here. And I think it's Justin Baldoni, which isn't the answer I wanted because something really irks me about him. Like, he's this super over feminist guy who's talking about like getting over his childhood trauma and blah, blah, blah. And it just seems icky to me a little bit. And I am a Taylor Swift fan, and I love Blake Lively's fashion. I think Ryan Reynolds is hilarious. I kind of wanted to skew towards that way, but I've been proven wrong, and that's okay. So we're going to go over this a little bit piece by piece for what's new and what's going on right now. So timeline, 2019. I got all this information from Candace Owens, mostly, guys, so I just want to shout out. Please go along to her videos. She has a way more in-depth video about all of this. And another thing just came out that I am very excited to watch after I post this about, it's called, her newest video is called Bad Blood. And it's about Taylor Swift kind of pulling herself away from Blake Lively and all in the midst of all this, which is smart. So in 2019, Justin Baldoni acquired the rights to this film. And we're going to fast forward to January 2023 when It Ends With Us begins filming in New Jersey and Deadpool begins filming in Vancouver. Here, yours truly. Here we are. Beautiful place. Come visit. And so Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds live in New York, Tribeca, I believe. And so Blake Lively's close to home, so she's there filming It Ends With Us, and Ryan Reynolds is fucking away filming Deadpool. So at this point in time, everything's going great with them. They're having a great time. They're really getting along. Justin Baldoni's like, oh, we're laughing until the wee hours of the morning, working together. Everything's tickety-boo. And then she starts giving too much advice. The lawsuit says at this point, she started, talking about things that weren't her job. Like she's an actor, and she really took over the costumes, and she was like, used a lot of her own clothes for the costumes for this. And she was like, of course she would have this vintage Dolce & Gabbana jacket that's cost $7,000. Of course this character would, which is not true, but hey, I'm always down for a $7,000 Dolce & Gabbana vintage jacket, always. So in June 2023, she invited him to her penthouse in Tribeca. He holds her baby, she takes a picture, and she invited him into his trailer while she was pumping. There's text proof of this. So she had claimed in her later lawsuit that she was being sexually assaulted by him before this. So if you had been sexually assaulted by somebody, why are you inviting them in your trailer while your tits are out? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. As someone who's been sexually assaulted, you wouldn't. You wouldn't do that. So the strike happens then, and she starts requesting to see dailies. She sent a formal email asking to see all of the footage. Now, I'm an actor. There is no way in hell that I would want to see all the footage. That is tens and tens of hours of boring footage. You do not want to see all of that. That is an editor's job. The only reason that she would want to see that is to see if something else is going down, right? So Candace Owens thinks that Ryan Reynolds came home from filming because the strike was going on and then got insecure about what was going on with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. So there were some weird text messages between them. He was at their house really late. At a penthouse, people are theorizing that Blake Lively started to have a crush on Justin Baldoni and that Ryan Reynolds kind of smelt this going on in the air or saw it on like their ring cam. Like, why is this dude at our house at 1 a.m.? Like, what's going on? Or like saw a text message that's like, that's weird, what's going on? Or like got a voice memo or something. And then was like, well, I want to see the dailies. Because why would Blake Lively want to see the dailies? Like, so people are theorizing that Ryan Reynolds requested to see the dailies through Blake. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. So that he could see if there was anything weird going on, like with them on set. So, man, I don't know why this printer is just cutting off the top of my things. It's really annoying. So I'm just going to have to vamp, guys. So November 23rd, the strike has lifted and filming resumes. Ryan Reynolds leaves town to go back to filming Deadpool, and right before Ryan leaves, Lively's lawyer shocks them with an email with 17 points of demands. Wow, there's so many 17s going on today in this video. I think I had 3. This is the third 17. They are shocked by this. This is the first of them hearing of the set not being safe. This doesn't make sense to them. She asked for an intimacy coordinator in this set of demands, and he had originally offered her an intimacy coordinator way back when, and she said no. So they mentioned nudity scenes in this lawyer letter from them in their list of demands, but there were no nudity scenes. Before we return to filming, she demands that you have to agree with all of these demands. So Justin Baldoni and company are like, this doesn't make sense. We're going to tell you this doesn't make sense for this reason, this reason, this reason, but we just got to move forward. And they agreed to these demands. They said that they have to get an all hands on deck meeting to make this work, and that Blake Lively could have someone to come and be a representative of her. And she requested that they have this meeting at their Tribeca apartment. And they're like, fine, whatever, we'll go to your apartment. So they go to her apartment for this meeting. And this is with editors of Sony, this is with lawyers, this is with personal assistants. And Blake Lively decided that her point of contact, her representative, was going to be Ryan Reynolds. So this takes place at their Tribeca apartment, which I already said, and Baldoni writes in his complaint that they blindsided the rest of the team. I'm going to read this. Lively brought Reynolds as her chosen representative. Notably, she did not request any attendees from her union, the Screen Actors Guild. Together, Reynolds and Lively blindsided the rest of the group with a list of grievances, read aloud by Lively, that were as troubling as they were fictional. Reynolds then launched into an aggressive tirade, berating Baldoni in what Baldoni later described as a traumatic encounter, which is another, this is why I wanted to, believe Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, because some guy yelling at you is going to be a traumatic encounter. Anywho, he's a little soft, but that's okay, because I do think he's in the right. As Baldoni later said, he had never been spoken to that like that in his life. Reynolds demanded that Baldoni apologize to Lively for actions that had either never happened or had been grossly mischaracterized. Baldoni resisted apologizing for things he had not done, further enraging Reynolds. Everyone, including the producer Lively, had asked the production to engage, and the Sony representative left the meeting in shock. The producer said that in his 40-year career, he had never seen anyone speak to someone like that in a meeting. The Sony representative said later that she often thought of the meeting and that her one regret was not intervening to stop Reynolds' tirade against Baldoni. So, they had this meeting to discuss this letter and these 17 things because they need to move forward. Blake Lively was supposed to show up with a SAG actor representative. Instead, she showed up with her husband, who continued to berate Baldoni in front of a room full of people, and these room full of people did nothing. Which is frustrating, because when you see bad things happen, you should say something, which is pretty much why I started this channel, is that phrase alone. I'm seeing bad things, I'm saying something. So they go back to set, they finish filming, and that's in February 2024, and Reynolds is around. He's on the set. I think what happened was Blake Lively got a little too chummy with her co-star. I don't think feelings happened from Justin's side. People are speculating that they happened from Blake's side. And I think she got caught in something. She got caught in an inappropriate text. She got caught being way too chummy with this guy by Ryan Reynolds. She got caught. He was in their Tribeca apartment really late at night. Something happened. She got caught. And when she got caught by her husband, she went, "It's him. He's making me uncomfortable. He sexually harassed me. It's him." And then Reynolds, being the alpha man husband he is, goes, "What? We will not stand this." And then he starts taking all of these executive actions in order to prevent his wife from being sexually harassed. And then she just is, because she lied, she's just along for the ride. She's just like, shit. Now we have to do this. Shit, now we have to do this. Shit, now we have to do this. I think that's what's happened. That's only my opinion. Don't come after me. Do not come sue me. That is just my opinion. So in June, Lively is starting to do screening by herself without Baldoni. And this is when she starts getting bad press for plugging her hairline, which I think is unfair. Like, she's already on the red carpet. She has this hairline coming out. 2 birds, 1 stone, whatever. So she thought, as a true narcissist does, that this bad press couldn't be her attitude, couldn't be what she's saying. It had to be because Justin Baldoni had orchestrated this smear campaign. So this is where I thought that he had this smear campaign. And I still kind of do. Like, I don't think he's completely innocent in this. I think there was some sort of smear campaign going on. But I do think that Blake Lively really rubs people the wrong way in these interviews, and it's coming back to bite her in the ass. So that's when Blake is now publicly saying bad things about Baldoni. She posted this weird post for the Deadpool premiere, and Candace Owens on her Instagram story did this series of like Easter eggs of all the times that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have just bashed Justin Baldoni, and it's a lot. Like, Ryan Reynolds made a happy birthday post to Sandra Bullock, who loves being called Sandy, by the way. And he said, for your birthday, I'm going to get you an intimacy coordinator and an HR department. What? Why? Like, it's such a random thing to put on Sandra Bullock's birthday post, right? And then Blake Lively posted this weird post for the Deadpool world premiere. And in it, she says, among other things, nice men who use feminism as a tool, which is a direct reference to Baldoni, I believe. So then August 6th rolls around, and this is the premiere. And there are these sad pictures of Justin Baldoni and all his friends and all his family in the basement. I'll post them right here. This is his own premiere. He is the producer. I think he's the director. I don't actually know. I should look into that. And he's one of the stars. And Blake Lively said she will not go on the red carpet. She will not go to the premiere if he's there. And so he pulls himself out of it. And him and his family and friends are literally in the basement celebrating what could and should have been one of the biggest moments of his career. It's so sad. Honest to God, it's so sad. And then, sorry guys, getting over being sick. Colleen Hoover, obviously is totally a Blake stan, because there's this interview with Colin Hoover and Blake Lively where they're talking about doing a sequel, and Blake Lively says something about, well, if Colleen gets the rights to this movie, then maybe we'll see about a sequel. And it's like, well, no, Justin Baldoni acquired the rights in 2019, so unless you know something, unless you're trying to get the rights taken away from him for some reason, then that doesn't make sense. To say something that blatant in an interview that's going live on TV, like, with something that's so obvious, like, Justin Baldoni has the rights. It's his movie. Like, why would you even say that? Because you know that, unless you plan on getting the rights taken away, which I think is actually what is going to be happening. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with Taylor Swift coming into this, because from what I've heard in the hemisphere, Blake Lively did her own cut of the movie. I don't know why. She's not an editor. Apparently she hired Taylor Swift's music video editing team, which, if you've ever watched a Taylor Swift music video, I love the girl, but her music videos are not her strong suit. She could do a lot better with those music videos. And so she created her own cut of the movie. Why? So she was in a meeting with Justin Baldoni when Taylor Swift, and this was at her own house. Why are all these meetings at her own house? Power. That's why. To get on your own turf, on your own land. When Taylor Swift comes in, and from what I gather, Blake Lively goes, oh, Taylor, hey, come in. I was just telling Baldoni about my cut of the movie. Yeah, I really think we should use that cut. What do you think? And then, allegedly, Taylor Swift goes, oh, yeah, her cut's so good. You should totally use her cut. I bet it's so much better than the regular editor's cut. And then meeting ends, and Justin Baldoni texts Blake and is essentially like, why did you bring Taylor in there? Like, you could have just brought the cut to me and talked to me about it, but like, you really did not have to bring Taylor Swift into this meeting, into this conversation. And this is allegedly the text that Blake Lively sent back. if you ever get around to watching the Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I'm Khaleesi. And like her, I happen to have a few dragons, for better or worse, but usually better. Because my dragons also protect those I fight for. So really, we all benefit from those gorgeous monsters of mine. You will too. I can promise you. And that's a quote. That's her actual text. So what this tells me, what this says to me is that I am Khaleesi. I am powerful, and Taylor Swift is my dragon, and Ryan Reynolds is my dragon. So don't fuck with me, because I'm going to use my dragons to get what I want. And that if that means bringing Taylor Swift and her editors into this project, that's what's going to happen. I think they ended up using her cut. But now that this is going down and Taylor Swift has been named in the lawsuit, there's been a article from the Daily Mail that came out just today that essentially, don't quote me here, says Taylor Swift and Blake Lively are taking a break from their friendship. Taylor doesn't want to be involved in this lawsuit at all. She doesn't think she should have been involved in this lawsuit at all. And what that tells me is that Tree Payne is doing a great job as a publicist, because everyone knows that Taylor Swift has her ins on certain places, and Daily Mail seems to be one of them. So her little Tree Payne publicist went, beep, 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 beep. Hey, we want to get ahead of this. Can we post, anonymously, of course, because this isn't a statement from Taylor Swift, that they're not being friends right now. They're taking a break, and Taylor doesn't want to be involved in this. Like, she was just used. Like, you know, she was blindsided by the fact that Blake Lively said anything about being her dragon. She was blindsided by the fact that she was named in Justin Baldoni at all. So that's going down now. It'll be really interesting. That's all the information I have for now, to see what ends up panning out about this. And we're going to keep our ears to the ground. I have a couple more things that I want to talk about. We're going to save it for the next episode. One, Mark Carney is now going to be probably the new Liberal nominee. Is that what it is? Probably not. It's probably not. But he's just Trudeau 2.0, and I've been doing some research onto Mark Carney because I knew nothing about him. And now looking into stuff about him, I don't like him at all. I think he's a bad, bad man. Speaking of, so I've been getting a little bit more political on my Facebook because I feel like it's kind of a safe place to do that. And there's a bunch of people on my Facebook who are very left-leaning, and I've started to poke holes in what they're saying. And there's this woman who posted this awful misinformation infograph about Pierre Poilievre, and I wrote this huge long thing, screenshotted it, and said, this is misinformation, this is the truth, this is what it's saying. Oh, here, I'll read it to you. No, I'll save it for next time. Anywho, she just deleted it. Like, it's like, at least fight me back. Like, at least give me give me some facts and some figures and some stats. Don't just be like, I don't want to hear it, and delete it when I'm spewing facts. I don't say anything unless I know, or else I'll say allegedly, or I'll say my opinion, or like I did with the Blake Lively thing today, I'll say I was wrong. My opinion was wrong. New information has come out. So we're going to be talking about Mark Carney, Pierre Poilievre, and what's happening in the Liberal government next episode. And we're also going to be talking about Facebook has stopped its censorship. Very interesting. Is that just a product of the times that's going now? Is Zuckerberg just swaying with who's in office right now? I think that's exactly what's going on. So stay tuned. We'll see you next episode. Take care. Be well. Bye.